capital management, and what I'd say other duties as assigned. We've got a diverse group with a range of skills, and we get involved in a lot of different things. You know, our day-to-day varies quite a bit, you know, depending on what we're working on. You know, if you roll back to spring of 2019, we would have had a group of us in a room huddled around a Bloomberg terminal, as well as a conference line. This was obviously pre-COVID, so this was all allowed and safe at the time. You know, watching Bloomberg pricing our 30-year debenture, and working with our bond syndicate desk at the banks to make sure that the deal was well placed, you know, across many large institutional investors across Canada. You know, that contrast today last month when we announced, after a long period of due diligence, financial modeling, and negotiations, a transaction whereby we took an equity interest in a global private markets manager based in Toronto. And so that was a very unique and very, you know, different day for us. And yeah, so it depends on our day, it depends on what's going on. My day can be filled with meetings with our CEOs, meetings with our CFOs. Could be, we spend time on the road, again, pre-COVID. Now it's all done virtually for the time being, but meeting with institutional investors across Canada and into the United States, and even into Europe. Meeting with investors that are interested in IGM Financial's story as an investment. And we're out there communicating that story to them from a financial lens, of course, and that's their orientation as they're interested in where shareholder value is being created and our path for growth. Other days spending in leadership. I have a great team of 5 people total, and you know, our organization and myself as well view leadership as being fundamental and important and part of our day-to-day, and I feel it's worth mentioning as part of my day-to-day. It's something we take seriously. I like to, you know, I have a developmental mindset, focusing on developing not only myself, but finding ways to develop and support the development of my team and also my peers around me. And there's days where we're in Excel, when you know, me and a team member might be spending a whole day in Excel working on financial modeling, trying to figure out how to best forecast a business if we're on the M&A side, or assess, you know, perhaps peers on the investor relations side. And then I'd say, lastly, again, just from I'm no longer at a high level, Wilson, but, you know, Excel and like PowerPoint would be, you know, 2 key keys that we use on a regular basis. And in the COVID environment, we spend a lot of time in this type of environment virtually, using, you know, Zoom or Teams or other, you know, technology like that that enables us to stay connected in this very difficult time. So I don't know, Wilson, if you want me to pass it on to the next.
Yeah, sure. I was just curious if you're done. Okay. If you're done, we can go with Sunny and then followed by Gang.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. And I'm thrilled to be here today. And Wilson, thank you very much for the invitation. And, you know, I understand we have a good group of people here today, and in particular, you know, to all the university students, the CFA candidates, the future CFA candidates, and the CFA program graduates as well. In terms of the question here, so how would I describe my day? And in some ways, I'd say my days are very similar, and in some ways they're very different. And, you know, I'm in enterprise risk management, and within our group, we have actuaries, we have CFAs, we have risk professionals. And so in what ways are my days very similar? Well, they're very similar in the sense that I probably spend about 80% of my time collaborating. and about 20% of my time in what I'll call self-development. So that 80% collaboration, it could be providing leadership and direction to the team. It could be one-on-one discussions. It could be meeting with broader teams. It could be more formal meetings, more formal presentations. And the collaboration, it's usually, you know, along the lines of resolving an issue, maybe bringing forward a recommendation, driving forward an initiative, or, you know, collaborating on other initiatives as well throughout the organization. And then that 20% self-development, which is very important that we all spend time on self-development. But, you know, I may spend that time planning, reading, staying abreast of industry issues, professional education, or personal development. Now, in the old days, that 80% collaboration was either, might have been in-person meetings, it might have been on the phone, it might have been traveling. But as Kyle alluded to as well, now in this COVID environment, that 80% collaboration is on Zoom or on Teams. And as a matter of fact, I always say, I don't even know how to make a phone call anymore. If anyone, you know, if I have to make a phone call or dial into a conference call, I need 5 minutes to figure out how to do that. So that's how every day is similar. But then in terms of how every day is different, it's different in terms of who I interact with, in terms of the initiatives or the projects that I'm working on, and the day-to-day issues that arise. So, you know, Canada Life, we are a global company, a global financial services company. So, you know, we are collaborating with people within Canada, so Winnipeg, Toronto, London. We also work closely with our US operations in Denver and Boston, and the European operations in UK and Ireland. So you can imagine, you know, time zones are a challenge. So sometimes you have very early morning meetings. But regardless, I'm always constantly being exposed to new things and different things, and I continue to learn every single day. So what specifically do I work on? So I did take a look at my calendar yesterday just to see what I worked on, what my meetings were all about yesterday. So worked on discussion on how to measure IT and cyber risk culture, which is very important. We had a discussion with internal audit about how we can collaborate better between internal audit and the risk function. We had a discussion about calibrating our stresses, our market risk, credit risk, insurance risk stresses, quarterly reporting, and then sustainability risk. So those were all my meetings yesterday. Now, you might ask, what does that have to do with the CFA program? And you might even ask, what does that even have to do with the actuarial program? And, you know, I always say, and actually somebody said this to me once, and whether it be finance or actuarial, whatever that designation is, it's more about the journey. In other words, it teaches you how to think. It teaches you how to approach a problem, how to analyze the situation, how to evaluate something. So it teaches you how to think, and it teaches you how to get from point A to point B. So to me, it's not about, you know, regardless of whether it's, you know, CFA program in particular, it's more about the journey. And, you know, I've been with the same company, Canada Life, for over 30 years. I won't tell you exactly how many years, but I've been in enterprise risk management now for 7 years. And my role has continually expanded and changed over time. But the one thing is that I'm continually learning, and whether that be subject matter or leadership skills, you know, I just encourage all of you, never stop learning. Thank you.
Thanks, Sunny. Now, Gang.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining this wonderful event on this wonderful day. We're not raining or snowing. I can look outside and very sunny, and we still have the green and the yellow and the red outside. So thank you, CFA, for hosting this event for us and for the CFA candidates and the future, you know, adventures. Okay, so I work for TD Wealth, Private Investment Counsel. So many of you know TD Bank, but very few of you really knows that TD is actually a very big bank group, have a lot of different entities, and TD Wealth is one of them. So our office is located in downtown Winnipeg, 360 Main Street, and if you drive by, you see a big TD sign on it. So that's actually where our head office is. So my role here is a portfolio manager, managing high net worth clients' portfolios and institutional clients' portfolios as a discretionary portfolio manager. So my clientele consists of mainly qualified high net worth individuals, such as retirees, business owners, doctors, dentists, and sometimes they have their own corporations, trusts, and estates. And some institutional investors like, for example, operational trusts, corporate investment accounts, pension funds assets, university endowments, hospital and regional healthcare foundations. So the list goes on. And for those of you that is doing the CFA Level 3 exam or preparing for it, then a lot of the things you will hear from me that's probably sounds familiar. For example, if I'm working on individual high net worth clients, so 40% of my day, roughly, are monitoring existing clients' strategic and tactical asset allocations, evaluating clients' portfolio performance, identifying risks and opportunities that we can take, making decisions on trading and rebalancing as needed, researching various investment solutions out there, making investment suitability assessments, working on investment proposals, and meeting clients' regular and ad hoc liquidity needs. Because overall, the client needs money or they have new money to invest, so that's part of the function as a portfolio manager. Another 40% of my time, I'll focus on meeting with prospects and also servicing. That's the most important part. We're servicing the existing clients and we practice holistic wealth management activities, such as meeting or calling the clients to discuss the current market conditions, the elections, and the pandemic, conduct annual client reviews, and performance evaluations for clients, prepare holistic financial plans for them. What are their goals, where they want to be, where they want to go, in 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Also, the financial plan will include estate planning, business succession planning, and there's a very important thing we do for clients is we implement tax efficient strategies to make sure the portfolio's after tax return is in line with their expectations. So the rest 20% of my time, it is designated for the institutional investors. So within this category, my focus will be solely on the investment management side, because institutional investors like a pension fund are not like a person. They're here for investment management services alone. So what we do is for example, we make investment proposals, we're setting up strategic asset allocations, making tactical asset allocation decisions, sector rotations, monitoring and rebalancing the portfolio, doing regular also performance evaluations, performing return attribution analysis. The list goes on. Participating, general board meetings. I have to personally go there to join their meetings and meet the investment committees and make presentations to them about their investments or a proposal. So I work with a lot of the board of directors for the institutions. So, of course, there will be also answering phone calls on a daily basis, returning emails. You actually spend a lot of time doing that, participating in seminars and market update calls. And you receive constant training and career development programs, and very popular for every organization. Once in a while, they're gonna change their system. Your ERP system conversions, we're going through one right now. We have internal meetings, coaching of my team, how to service client better, and then you go to breakfast, you go to coffee, you go to lunch and dinner events, travel to rural areas to meet clients, or TD have a lot of branches outside of Winnipeg and Manitoba. And sometimes we also fly to Toronto and major cities for conferences. And I do have some clients in BC or Alberta. You know, I do have a license for 5 provinces in Canada. So that's all part of the job. So to have a summary, this is a job, the job I'm in will require a little bit more on, you know, the interpersonal and communication skill set, because you really have a very wide range of audience, you know, clients or whoever, partners. So, you know, your audience is from people who know everything about Sharpe ratios, information ratios, and those technical stuff, to individuals with no knowledge about how to make a contribution to TFSAs.
I see. Perfect. Okay. Thank you, gang. So right now, moving on to the second question, Sunny, I'm just going to give you a heads up. You will be starting right first. So going back to your time at university, what attracted you to pursue a career in finance, and what drew you to the CFA program? And did you have a mentor back then? And do you have one now? Sorry, it's a lot in one question. Go ahead, Sunny.
Wilson, thanks. In terms of the CFA program, so I'll go way back to my university days, and each one I think has a different story, maybe a unique story in terms of the CFA program. And, you know, I'm a very proud University of Manitoba grad. I went through the Commerce faculty majoring in actuarial math, and now I'm dating myself because Commerce faculty is now Asper School of Business. But for me at the time, it was perfect combination of everything that I was interested in. So math, statistics, business, finance, economics, just wrapped everything all together into one package. Then I joined Canada Life, and in Canada Life I went through a few different roles. Some roles were more traditional actuarial roles and some were non-actuarial roles. But as I was going through that, I always had in the back of my mind somehow furthering my education in the future. And the CFA program was always something that I had considered that was in the back of my mind. So then, you know, after spending about the first half of my career in either pricing or financial roles, really focused on the liability side of the asset balance sheet. And then fast forward then to 2003. And that's when I moved to asset liability management in the investment division. And when I moved to asset liability management, I knew that it was going to be very different, but I didn't realize how different it was to see things from the asset side of the balance sheet compared to the liability side of the balance sheet. And it was like learning a whole new language. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it immensely. And after a few years in ALM, asset liability management, you know, I had really thought about CFA program, and after a few years, I thought maybe it's the right time to write that CFA, to enter the CFA program. And I mean, a lot of companies do support CFA program, and Canada Life is no exception. You know, we've got CFAs in the investment division, in ALM, in corporate finance, risk function, and other areas within the organization. And as a matter of fact, one of our former presidents and CEOs came through the investment division with CFA designation, as did our former chief financial officer. So at the time for me, I really wanted the designation. I really thought it would help me in terms of just credibility within the investment division. And the time was right in that I had lots of support. It was a good time in my life. And I had support from the company and I had support from my team. And as a matter of fact, at the time within ALM, there were 4 of us that wrote the exams together. We all went through level 1, level 2, level 3, all at the same time. So it really helped having that support group. And, you know, while I'd say I was definitely on the more mature side in terms of the age demographics for CFA candidates, I can say I was not the oldest. In our group of 4, there were actually 2 people who are older than me who were writing the exam. And so I was really fortunate in that I think when I wrote the exam, just the stars are aligned in terms of my role, in terms of my personal life, and I was able to kind of make that commitment. You know, and while at the time, you know, I was focused on, you know, thinking that it would establish or help me in my ALM role, I mean, it's also very valuable to me, my current role in enterprise risk management, where, you know, CFA not only provides expertise assessing you know, I guess maybe in the more traditional sense, assessing companies at a micro level, but it also helps at a macro level in terms of assessing credit risk, market risk, liquidity risk, and, you know, developing hedging strategies and, you know, assessing, you know, mergers and acquisitions or various investment opportunities. In terms of, Wilson, the question on mentorship, and I do think having a mentor is very, very valuable. Someone who's objective, who can give you feedback and coaching. I've never had a formal mentor, but I've had many, many informal mentors. So throughout my career, I've really had the good fortune to work with many exceptional people, people who have supported me, who have given me advice, people that I've learned from. And, you know, if you don't have a formal mentor, or even if you do have a formal mentor, you know, I would say look around at the people that surround you. Look at the people around you. And, you know, they could be your team members, your peers, your leaders, your family, your friends. What qualities do they have that you admire? What can you learn from them? I think there's a huge opportunity for informal mentorship just by looking at the people around you. You know, we all need mentors. We all need people to help us on our journey. And these mentors, they can be formal or informal. And then, you know, while mentors will certainly help you along your journey, at some point, it's also time to give back. And at some point, you'll become the mentor. Thank you. Thanks, Wilson.
Thanks. So we'll go by Gang and then followed by Carl.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of Sunny has to put it out there. So for me, I was an international student when I come to Canada 16 years ago. You know, compared with the domestic local undergraduate students, I really have a different background than most of them. You know, I was new to this country and this campus, trying to adjust, adapt myself to the culture and the weather at the same time. So, you know, back then, I totally underestimated the power of networking. And I didn't really approach any professionals outside of the business school for any career advice per se. You know, back then there was no LinkedIn or you know, similar kind of a social media, or they might exist, but it's just not very popular at the time. So I didn't even know anything about a CFA. I'll be honest with all of you. And then until I started my first job as a treasury risk analyst, because I was physically surrounded by numerous CFA charter holder. You know, everybody had their CFA behind their name. Without, like, I don't have anything behind my name at the time. And then, you know, through discussion and, you know, talking to them, I wasn't even sure, you know, oh my goodness, this is one of the hardest exams out there. I wasn't even sure if I can complete it. You know, my confidence, it's just not there. So time moves on, and it wasn't until my next employment opportunities, which I became a senior investment accountant in a global asset management company, then I start to, you know, get in contact with all the different investment opportunities, capital markets. You know, before I was doing treasury stuff, you know, all the money market things, you know, repos and short-term investment. So after that, you know, my senior investment accountant, I deal with mutual funds, you know, equity markets, bonds market, senior loans, and those type of stuff. So it's really, you know, I start to sense the need for a specific skill set to be able to, you know, outperform in your job. And then I take another role at the company as an investment analyst. So that's when I started, you know, again, I'm surrounded by CFAs. So that's when I started to say, okay, you know what, Gang, you have to sit down and think about your future. If you want to do really good in your job, you need your CFA designation. So that's when I started my CFA in 2015. So when I actually needed the program, when I know what I want, then I started. So to answer the question of the mentor, so looking back, I really wish I had a mentor, you know, or even my parents. Your parents is your best mentor ever. But, you know, again, I'm here by myself. They don't really know anything about Canada. They don't even speak English. So there's really nobody telling me, you know, what to do for the finance, you know, in the financial career. I wish I had the enthusiasm to challenge myself and going out of my own comfort zone You know, everybody have a comfort zone. You know, a lot of international students join the call today. You know, I know it's hard. You know, we don't know anybody, and you know what? We're in our comfort zone and contained to myself. You know, to ourselves. And then you know what? Seeking some professional advice for career development is a really good thing, especially during this pandemic. There's nothing better else to do than communicate with people on LinkedIn, you know, reach out to people, and you'll be amazed how helpful people really are. The professionals, they're really helpful. So don't be afraid to do that. Get out of your comfort zone and do that. So I didn't have one, but you know what? At the moment, I team up with one of our senior portfolio managers within the TD Private Investment Council, and we joined to manage about, you know, between 125 to 150 high net worth clients and families, including some institutional investors. So he is my mentor. You know, he is my partner. He's my colleague. He's my mentor, absolutely. And I also have other mentors, such as my boss. You know, he's so supportive for me to do even. So I'm writing the CFP exam next year. I'm doing a CFP program because it's very relevant. Again, it's very relevant to my job, right? What I do is do financial planning. So I might need a certified financial planner designation. So when I come down to these designations, this is when I need them. I want to, you know, study for them because your goal is so clear. And I agree with Sunny. There's a lot of mentors out there. You know, all my colleagues could be potentially mentors. You know, even somebody reported to me, my associate can be my mentors because there are qualities that you can learn from everyone. And then it's through that, you know, continuously self-improvement to make us better, to make, you know, the jobs easier, to make us more successful in the future. So that is my answer, Wilson.
Thank you. Thanks, gang. And thanks for concluding with the end. So I know that it's my turn to speak. So next is Carl.
Thanks, Wilson. I'll try to conclude my answer more clearly this time, like Sunny and gang have done so well. So maybe going back, I think the question was, Wilson, you were looking for us to reflect back on our time in university, what attracted us to pursue a career in finance and the CFA program as well. And then also the second aspect of it, or, you know, relating to mentorship. So I'd say that from a you know, story of how I, you know, what my university time looked like and how and why I pursued career in finance, I think that I might keep that whole story for a smaller audience with more time, and maybe post-COVID when we can actually, you know, sit together and shoot the breeze a little bit. But my journey, I would say, started on a small farm in southeastern Manitoba, family farm. That was my first connection with business. That was my first connection with finance. It was also my first passion, my first love. So my journey from being, you know, working on a dairy farm in southeastern Manitoba to being in finance it's a very, very long story, and I won't go through all that here today. So let's fast forward to university and you know, perhaps, you know, how did I find my way into finance? I'd say I came out of university still being very open to different career opportunities and different paths. I wasn't narrowed in on finance when I graduated from the Asper School of Business. I still had a lot of interest, a lot of curiosity. So I spent a good amount of time exploring that. I had a great opportunity, great role, very fortunate to have the chance to work in a number of different areas and kind of test out what it feels like to work in marketing. What does it feel like to work in a product development group, a treasury group, all these different things. And through all that, I'd say, you know, I had a very strong, I had many mentors, I would say, but I had a very strong mentor early on that I think saw something in me that I hadn't seen yet, or saw some clarity in me that I hadn't found yet, that finance was a good home, a good place for me to spend time. And that individual had their CFA charter. They obviously had done very well for themselves. I was often surprised by the knowledge and insight that they brought to any problem that faced us. And I think the CFA charter was a key component of that. And then also, it was also, this individual had a great deal of intelligence, both book and street. So that was, I'd say I was fortunate enough to have that mentor early on that encouraged me to pursue and start up the CFA program, even before I knew that I was going to land in finance. So coming straight out of university, I started up the CFA program kind of as quick as I could to get that rolling, just in case I ended up in finance. So later on, that mentor ended up pulling me into my first permanent long-term role in the finance organization, and I've had a lot of interest in the not the range of finance, range of corporate finance, all the corporate finance activities that are done in a financial services company. Obviously, that's quite broad and extensive. So the CFA curriculum, I thought, was also very applicable to that, where it wasn't boxed into just being one approach. I think Sunny talked about the breadth and how of the curriculum and how it helped apply to a lot of different areas, and Gang talked about the same thing and relating some of the content in level 3 specifically to the work that you do every day. And I saw all of that, and I saw that the breadth of relevancy to the work that we did that drew me towards that. So focused a lot of time on that. And then maybe back to mentors a little bit. And Sunny and Gang talked about this as well. And I think Sunny, you said that you had a lot of informal mentors and not so many, not necessarily so many formal mentors. When I think about like what do I had the same reflection, and when I thought about informal mentors, I mean, I don't think there's ever been a situation when I've sat on one side of the table and looked at the person on the other side of the table and said, "Hi, you're my mentor," or "Hi, you're my mentee." And instead, informal relationships that build over time, that are built on a sense of trust, some sense of mutual benefit, and I think that's important as you think about seeking out mentors. And Sunny, I know you gave some advice. There's mentors all around you. That those mentors benefit, from their relationship with you as well, and it's an important part of the relationship. I've benefited from both having great mentors over the years, and well as having great mentees, people that help me stay connected, to different aspects of whether it's different industries or different times in one's career. So I think it's important to bring that in. And when you think about mentor relationships, formal or informal, think about the value that you bring to whichever side of the table that you're on. So yeah, I think we probably caught all the key points. I could talk on mentorship for a lot longer, but I'd say I do feel very fortunate to have had great mentors over many years, and continuing to have very great mentors today, both in the form of direct reporting lines, but also, as Gang and Sunny talked about, others within the network, others that I have the opportunity to work with and learn from. And with that, Wilson, I'll turn it back over to you for the next question.
Okay, so the next question will start with Gang, and then Kyle, and then Sunny. So could you please share a little bit more about your journey of getting your first job in the industry? I think it's sort of covered a little bit, but we could touch base a little bit on that. And maybe what kind of hurdles you face as well, and how do you overcome that? Because we have a lot of students here, a lot of candidates here who like to hear what kind of hurdles do you really face when you get your first job. So we can start with Gang, if you can be brief.
Yeah,
thanks.
Absolutely. That's a really relevant question to me, because I do have a lot of hurdles. I'm going to give you one of them today, the most important one that I had. Well, back to the my background, right? I came to Canada 16 years ago as an international student. So for any international student, my immediate agenda was really loud and clear. After graduation, find a relevant field of employment, and and do the job and apply for your permanent residence. That's I think for me, most people, that's what we're here for. So for me, I didn't really have the luxury to say, oh, what did you do after graduation? Oh, I traveled the world, I went to Europe. You know what? I don't have that time, to be honest with you. And then I really don't have opportunity to pick and choose where I want to work. Is this job really for me? Is that job really for me? As long as finance, my vision is a little short at the time because I have an immediate goal to obtain the immigration status in this country. So, it's more like, okay, here is the contract, Mr. Wang, sign it or leave it. Okay, oh my God, great, thank you so much for the opportunity. So you sign it and then you start working. Okay, and then you can keep on going with your journey to get your permanent residence so you can do better things later. So I started my provincial nominee program after 6 months of getting the employment, working as a treasury analyst. You have to went through the federal skilled worker program and so on. So some of you might know what I'm talking about. For the domestic students, none of you know what I'm talking about because you don't really have to go through that at all, right? So the hurdle was always, because we have this important goal we have to do, I don't really know what I want to do in my career. To be honest with you, like I said, I didn't even know about CFA when I was in school because I was staying in my comfort zone, focused on studying. I do have a lot of part-time job at the time, but really, I didn't really think about a lot of career. I just need to get a job, right? So my focus wasn't far enough. Looking back, I didn't really know what I was gonna do. So I think for most people here, I want to tell you, don't walk the same path as me because it took me a long way to get here today. But many of you, if you're in this call, if you're still in university, I think you're doing fantastic. Keep doing what you're doing. Reach out to the society, to the people, to reach out to them. They're not monsters. They're friends, and they're supporters. They're mentors, and they're here to help you. And if you can do that, I'll say you will see you can draw a straight line from where you are today to where you want to be in the future, instead of going around. But don't get me wrong, like anything that I've been through, I learn a lot. When you went through different paths. I used to be a CA, kind of a students back in when we had the co-op students. And I signed up on CPA before, but I didn't complete it. I went, some tough roads, but I don't want you to do that. I want you to know that you can go from straight A to B, and if you reach out to people. And I think that's the one thing you didn't remember anything I said today. Remember that. I think that's going to be beneficial for you specifically. So I think I'll pass out to Sunny.
Sorry, I think Cal first.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Cal.
Go ahead, Cal.
I'm happy. I'm happy either way. Yeah. So what journey of getting the first job in the industry? I think Wilson, you mentioned. I've probably touched on that a little bit in my prior responses. And then as it comes to hurdles, I think I'll keep my response to this one on the brief side. It's a really interesting question. I'd say that the hurdles I faced, my first job in the industry, it's not an overly compelling story. I consider myself to be very fortunate to have had the opportunities that I've had. I consider myself to have had great luck over the course of my career. And I often think about and talk about, the best thing that I can and have done over the course of my career is to position myself to take advantage of luck and opportunity that come across that come in front of me. So I think maybe instead of talking about the hurdles of my first career, maybe I'll talk about hurdles that maybe I experienced, and I think others in the group can probably relate to as well. None of us grow up in an office environment. Very few of us, I imagine, were born and and raised in an office environment, knowing exactly what the norms and expectations are in a workplace, at a formal workplace. So my background, and we'd all have our own backgrounds, of course, and my background on a small farm I spent a number of years working in heavy equipment, kind of in the construction industry as well. And, you know, with that, the office place for my first job, whether it was finance or not, it was a very foreign affair. It was something that was very strange to me. And I think I don't think that's that uncommon. Like I said, I think that's probably a fairly common challenge. So for myself, the way I addressed that hurdle, which again isn't the most exciting hurdle, Gang had a much more interesting story about his hurdles and the challenge that he's faced to get to where he is today. But I'd say with that hurdle, with the office environment and adjusting to it, you know, I think it's important to take the time to observe, listen, watch people around you, and take it in, and try to take as much as you can from the culture. Every office environment even is unique. Every department even within an office building has its unique norms and expectations. And, you know, take the time, you know, to observe them, learn from them, and then make them real for yourself. Make sure that as you go through that, it might not be easy day one. Make sure that I'd encourage you to find a path towards bringing your whole self, your authentic self, to that workplace. Connecting with what it is, what the expectations are in that office environment, or virtually now through Teams and Zoom. But really, you know, spend the time and effort to find a way to connect with who you are and how you can connect into that environment. So that's something that I think is a journey for everyone. I've always enjoyed sitting back and observing, so that part came naturally to me. But I have to admit, it took me longer than I would have liked it to bring my full self and bring my authentic self to that office environment that was very strange and foreign to me. So that's, I guess, for hurdles. Okay. I think it's one that many people probably face, and yeah. Thanks, Wilson. And
okay, thanks. So Sunny, you can go next.
All right, take myself off mute. Thanks, Wilson. And so I think I may have mentioned earlier, you know, when I started my career, 1986, and I suspect many of you weren't born at that time, including my fellow panelists here. But I do consider myself to be very fortunate. You know, time was on my side. When I graduated, the economy was growing, the demand for actuaries was very high, and you pretty much just needed one exam. If you had one exam, you were going to get a job as an actuary. But what really helped me, I think, in terms of getting my first job in the industry is confidence and presence. And so when you think about, that whole process of, you know, applying for jobs and interviewing jobs, and, you know, there's two things you got to get through first, right? One is you got to pass the resume test. So you got to pass the resume test, you know, if you got the academics, you got the right background, then you get to the interview, and then it's all about how you present yourself in the interview. And I always think that, you know, during an interview or during any kind of, any kind of collaboration or communication, what is really important and what really comes out is your life experiences. So the life experiences that you've had to get you to this point. Those life experiences, they really come through in terms of your maturity, in terms of your perspectives, and in terms of your goals. And just, I'll tell you a personal story. When I was in high school, and in high school, one of the best things I ever did was get a job at McDonald's. And McDonald's for me was, I didn't realize the value of the job at the time. When I was in high school, I wanted to be financially independent. And for me, when I was 15, that meant I wanted to be able to buy my own clothes. So I got a job at McDonald's. And what I ended up getting out of it was a really, really valuable experience in terms of how to deal with the public, in terms of the importance of customer service, hard work, being part of a team. And coincidentally, in my era, there's actually 3 actuaries at Canada Life who worked in McDonald's. There's myself, there's another SVP, and there's a VP. And I'm not trying to do an ad for McDonald's or anything like that. I'm not trying to recruit for McDonald's. But, you know, my point is that it's not about the job itself. It's about the life experiences that you get from their job. And, you know, I think Kyle would probably agree with that. He's talking about the dairy farm and the construction work. It all got you to where you are here today. And you grew and you built from it. And so with any job, it's really about what you put in that job and what you get out of it. And, you know, it may be a job at a fast food chain, but you're still going to learn a lot. There's lots that you can take and you can apply from all your life experiences. Just more specifically in terms of, you know, many hurdles, and I'd say for me, probably the biggest transition when I went from university to actually working, the biggest transition was probably recognizing that things aren't black and white. So, you know, when you go through university, when you go through high school, it seems like things are black and white, things are right and wrong. And, you know, especially if you go into something that is, you know, whether it be finance or actuarial, that's a little bit more, you know, a little bit more mathematical in nature. But, you know, when you actually start working, you realize that, you know, it's all a spectrum. There's all sorts of shades of gray, and you have to learn to navigate and to deal with those shades of gray and that ambiguity. So that's probably, I would say, the biggest lesson sort of right out of university that I had to sort of take and adjust to. Right. Thanks, Wilson.
Okay, thank you. So we are running short of time here. So the last question I will ask here, so if we can keep the response shorter. So lastly, I know obviously you guys face many challenges, but right now, do you have any final piece of advice for the young leaders in attendance today as they embark on their journey? And for Sunny, I know I spoke to you before, if you can touch a little bit more on women in finance, I mean, that would be really great as well. We'll start with Kyle and then followed by Sunny and Gang.
Okay, great. And Wilson, do we have any questions from the audience as well that we want to get through, or are we gonna?
Yes, we do have one, but maybe I can try to ask right now and then we can just blend it into the question. Okay, so what advice do you have to give to students when we're trying to get their first job as a student in the finance industry without going through a co-op in university?
Okay.
So maybe you can choose that or blend it in, or.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a good question. I think advice to get a job, I think, and you know, Sunny talked about experience, you know, her experiences, and I think that I would agree with what Sunny talked about with the importance of looking at a job for what it can be for you, you know, for in that moment. And every job is different, and every job will contribute to your career in some way. So, you know, finding a way to focus on the opportunities that any job can bring to you that might help you slowly build towards where you want to go. I'd also say from, you know, from a selection perspective and you know, when you're looking at different opportunities, finding the opportunities to, in an interview, for example, asking questions that'll help you understand what that job is and how you can connect with it, and what kind of fit it provides for you. So in the interview, allocating time to actually ask your own questions as the person on the other side, the person being interviewed, asking questions about the job, asking questions about what it looks like to be successful, or if there's key characteristics for individuals to find success in the job. I think it does two things. I think it can help you, as long as they're true questions and they're truly things that you're interested in, and you have an interest in applying it to your approach to the interview and how you think about the job. It really shows intention. It shows that you care and that you're interested in how you fit with the job, how you fit with the opportunity. So spending time on that, asking questions, and then, you know, and if you find that it's that they're looking for an aggressive, extrovert that is going to push product down people's throats, and if you happen to be more introverted and that doesn't sound like you, then treat the interview as practice and move on to the next opportunity if you can afford to be patient. So that's what I'd say there. And as far as I had some thoughts on advice for folks as well, or back to your question, Wilson, about what, almost like what advice would you give to yourself many years ago? And I think I'm going to run out of time to get into them in detail, but I think I would actually say pace yourself and exhibit patience when you can. I maybe just a very quick anecdote, and then I'll pass it on. I think to Sunny. Someone told me just yesterday that suggested that we only have a fixed amount of patience, and you can kind of think about you having a jar of patience for you to use each an individual day. I accept that, and I think that's a very interesting point. And I think that you could extend that over longer periods of time as well. But I think patience is something that we can practice as well, and you can think about expanding that jar, that patience that you have. And I found over my experience that with patience, and focusing on some really important things, some things that are truly deeply important to you, that you connect with, that with that patience can bring great things and can be very rewarding. So Sunny, I'll pause there because I'll take up too much time otherwise.
Okay, yeah, Sunny.
Right, thanks. So for the young leaders of today, I'm just briefly going to say three things. One is be prepared to work hard. And, when I say work hard, I say that with the work-life balance in mind. So in other words, your priorities will change over time. And it might be that now you're just getting started, and kickstarting your career is a more important thing. However, at some point it may be that raising a family becomes a priority. And then as the family becomes a little bit more independent, it may be that you can once again focus on your career. So the work-life balance needs to work for you, and that what the right balance is, it may change over time. The second thing is, to hang on to that idealism and optimism that you have, coming out of university. Yes, the world is your oyster. And, certainly I find it's great to work with people who are optimistic, who are, the glass is half full. The third thing, and Kyle alluded to it a little bit, is it's take chances. If you see an opportunity, don't be afraid to put your hand up. If you see an opportunity, seize that opportunity. They don't always come along. When they do come along, you need to sort of recognize them and jump on them. And then to the women in the audience, certainly we've seen the change that's happening in society, the increasing demands for social justice and social equality. And, if I think back over the 30 years, the business world, it has come a long way, but it's got a long way to go. So what I'd say to all of you is to be part of that change. So be the first, be the first female at the table, be the first female on the team, be the first female leader, be the first and really pave the way for others. I realize we're almost out of time, so I do want to thank everyone for joining and listening, and I've had fun. It's been great. Thank you very much for inviting me, Wilson.
Thank you. So we'll go to Gang briefly. Gang, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry. I'll say briefly, okay, to answer the question about the first job, the interview, the resume. You know what? When you apply for a job, they're not gonna find a perfect candidate, right? So if you meet 80%, apply for it. Don't suicide yourself and saying I'm not qualified for this one particular, qualification, so I'm out. So don't do that. Apply and you'll be surprised. Okay, so I want to conclude this by saying a few things, advice to our audience, and also I want to conclude by referring back to the CFA charter as well. So I'll be quick. So I think the first advice I want to give to whoever's listening is, you have to respect the people who trusted, who invested, and who believed in you. Either is your boss signing you up for the first time, and do not take it for granted. And the second one, recognize your responsibility in your job and be prepared to be accountable. You have to be accountable at what you do. And the third one is excel your current job before you're moving to the next one. Don't say, oh, I don't like this job, I'm just using it as a stepping stone. But you know what? In my case, you always want to do that job wonderful. You want to be the perfect guy that you want to be the last person they want you to leave. Then you're ready to move to the next one. And the fourth one I want to give you is, whatever you do, you always have clients. Your clients could be your company. Your clients could be your real clients. Put your clients' interests first and always act with integrity and with the helpful thing in mind to help people out. Okay, and I want to conclude the three things in CFA. So the CFA exams are your foundations of self-confidence. The charter will give you confidence to let you do what you do best for your clients. And the 4 years of experience required is, I view it as your test. It's your test for your self-awareness. Can I really do this type of work? And the last, the charter. When you have the charter in your hand, that is your ticket. Your ticket to a new and ethical financial world, to have your self-realization. You realize the value you bring to the society by having the CFA charter in your hand, then you can start to do good things. And I remember my best friend telling me this, just very, very quick. He's actually here today. I saw him. He told me, you know what? He got a charter 1 year before me. He said, the charter is just the beginning. You know what? He's absolutely right. So remember, obtaining a charter, it's just the beginning of your journey. And wherever you want to go and you end up, it's all up to you. So thank you very much, everyone, to give me this opportunity to talk to you.
Okay,
Back to
thank
you,
you.
Wilson.
Thank you, everyone. And thanks for being here virtually today, all of you. And thank you, Sunny. Learn a lot from you. And also thank you, Eva Swan as well, our CFA Society Winnipeg administrator, who coordinated the setup of this webinar. So because we're running out of time for questions, so if you have any specific questions you would like to be answered by our panelists, feel free to send it to info@cfawinnipeg.ca. Okay, and as a thank you for all of you as a panelist who are being here today, the CFA Society Winnipeg will be making a donation to Silo Mission on your behalf. So we'll keep all three of you posted. And lastly, we look forward in seeing you in our next webinar event, the US 2020 election. A lot is at stake for markets on October 8th, which is 2 days from now. And again, thank you everyone for attending, and we'll see all of you soon, and take care. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
You.
Eva.